Hi, I'm Ben from literature-review-hq.com, and today I'm going to make a short video about something that many people have asked me about, and that is, what is the literature review question? What do you need it for? How do you find it? Now, the reason this has been asked a lot is because a lot of people try and write their literature review because they obviously have a topic about which they could write about, and so they take the topic and they go and they write their review. It seems straightforward enough, but especially in modern days, with the access that we have to the literature, this topic is actually a monster when you try and consider what it actually involves and what you need to do to write it. You'll be taking information from over here, you'll be taking information from over here, over here, over here, over here, and you'll be trying to join it together and link it into some kind of coherent review. And it's not possible because of the scale of this topic. It's normally just too big. What you should be writing with a literature review is something much smaller, much more specific. So you may write a literature review about this small section here, and that is where the question comes in. So you may be given a literature review topic which is something like cancer drugs. Now, clearly you can't write a literature review about cancer drugs. The topic is meaningless. I mean, cancer drugs mean so many different things to so many different areas of science. To biology it means one thing, to chemistry it means another, in the social sciences it means another. So you've got to really define it, even if you're just talking about biology. You have to define it, you have to cut it right down. So instead of saying the topic is, instead of writing a literature review about cancer drugs, you would write it about something like the effect of cancer drug XX, or the effect of cancer drug type XX on treating cancer YY, for example. And so your question will be, how do you effectively treat cancer Y with drug class X? And that will be obvious in the title. Whatever your research question is, whatever your literature review question is very obvious from the title of your literature review. At the same time, you wouldn't write a literature review about French politics. It just is too large. You could ultimately, eventually write something about French politics, but it would be this kind of area here that we're talking about. It would be massive, it would be huge. Instead, what you need to do, you need to find an area of French politics that is this. So you'd say, maybe I want to write about the socialist policies of the government in France between year X and year Y. Or I want to write about the policies that governed the economic growth of France between year X and year Y. So you see what I mean? You're going from a topic which is very broad and you're making it very narrow. So this helps us to actually define what our literature review is going to be. So there's three main components as I see them to the literature review question that help you decide what it actually is. So as we've just talked about there, the literature review question is specific. So you make your question much more specific, and we've just kind of gone through a little bit about that and given some examples. Your literature review question is also interesting. Now, a lot of people don't really understand why you would make a literature review question interesting, or why it's important that it's interesting, but it's very important. if you want to publish a literature review, people have to find it interesting, or it's not going to get published in a journal. People have to want to read it. At the same time, if you're doing a literature review for a class, the person who's marking it is going to give you a higher mark if they find what you've written interesting. If you put if you've written it in an interesting way, if you've narrowed it down to an area that is genuinely interesting. So when and also, you've got to find it interesting, otherwise you're not going to be able to write a very good literature review. So it's got to reflect the interests of your audience. And it's also got to reflect your own interests. Because if you find it interesting, you're going to put more time and you're going to put more energy into it. Now, this last point is probably one of the things that people don't think about at all, in the fact that your literature review is going to be novel. It's going to be new. It's going to present new information to people, and a lot of times people just don't understand how, don't understand why. You're writing a literature about something that has already been done, so almost by definition what you're doing is anything but novel. You're writing about something that someone has done already, someone's written about already. But that's not true. You are presenting information in a novel way because of your interpretation. The way you interpret the information that you have is novel, and that's the novelty value of your literature review. And so when you decide your question, you need to decide how are you going to present something new, something that hasn't been done before. And the reason it's new is because you have all the information that at your fingertips. When people presented their original research, they didn't have all the current information that you have now, and they certainly didn't have your mind's eye and your way of interpreting, your way of looking at the data, and they probably didn't have your slant on it either. When you're looking for a question, they probably didn't have your exact question. So you're going to actually come up with something completely new that has never really been considered before, that has never been looked at in this exact way. And that is why interpretation is probably one of the most important parts of the literature review. You're taking information that already exists, you're putting it together in a way that may or may not have been done exactly like that before. But your conclusions when you finish your literature review are going to be completely different. They're going to be your own conclusions. So that is why interpretation is so important. So just to give a quick recap of what your questions should be, go over it here. It's got to be specific. You can't just take your literature review topic that you're given and write about it. You have to take some time to consider exactly what specific components of it you want to write about. It's got to be interesting. It's got to spark your own interest. It's got to spark the interest of the people who are going to read it. Otherwise, they're not going to spend very long reading it, and there's no point writing something that's not going to get read. And if the person who's marking it for an exercise finds it interesting, you're going to get better marks. It's got to be novel as well. You've got to find a novel way of interpreting information that already exists. But that is novelty. That is new. And that's it. Thank you for listening to my short video. I'm Ben from literaturereviewhq.com. I'm also on Twitter, so if you're on Twitter, look for me at litreview. HQ. Thanks very, very much for listening, and I'll put up some more videos soon.